What is up, you guys? Today we are going to be building the YouTube UI using Tailwind CSS and Next.JS, but in this video I'm going to be taking a slightly different approach than my traditional tutorials. So rather than already having solved the problem and already have an existing solution that I have created and then just showing you how to do it in a sequential set of steps, I'm going to be attempting to solve this problem for the first time without having done any sort of preparation before. So it's going to be more like a live stream. And hopefully this will be helpful for you guys. And I'm going to try to capture kind of my raw thinking process and how I approach these problems and what I do when I face issues and how I get through roadblocks and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't have a script for this video. Don't know how it's going to go. Let me know if you like these types of videos in the comments below. And yeah, let's get right into it. So what are we going to be building? We are going to focus on the front end of YouTube here. We're going to build out some, video components. The only preparation I've done for this video is I've created like dummy video data. We're going to build this side navigation here, this top navigation, and we're going to make it responsive as well. So you can see here on youtube.com that we have responsiveness. Yeah. So let's jump right in. I don't have a plan for this video, so I'm just going to be totally, going to try to capture how I would do this if I was going to be doing it myself. All right, so what I have, so I have YouTube open here, and then I have the application, a brand new Next 13 application here on the right, and then the code on the left. So the starting point I'm at is I've followed this documentation here. I've just installed CSS with Next.js. I will link this in the description down below, but if you want to follow along, which I highly recommend you to do, follow the steps in this guide here. There are 5 very simple steps. It takes like 30 seconds, and then you'll be caught up right with me here, and you can build along with me. Yeah, you can just do a Google search first, Tailwind CSS with Next.js, and you'll find this page here. So do that, and then the other thing I'd recommend you to do is there is a VS Code extension called Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. I don't know why the name's not showing here. Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. Essentially what this does is it gives you IntelliSense with Tailwind. It gives you basically autocomplete when you're typing the Tailwind CSS utility classes in your HTML. It improves the developer experience tenfold, and without it, it would be a mess developing with Tailwind, because there's no point in memorizing all of these utility classes when you can just have this IntelliSense extension do it for you. So highly recommend you to get this. It improves the developer experience tremendously. Yeah, that's all I have to say there. All right. What else do I need to say before we get into this? I'm not going to be diving too deep into like the explanations of Tailwind and what CSS, like how the CSS classes work and stuff. If something comes up that I think warrants an explanation, I'll dive a bit deeper. Again, I don't have a plan for this, so if you want more of an explanation in future videos, let me know. I think, though, that the best way to get good at Tailwind, or any tool for that matter, is to just use it and build with it, and then Google things when you get stuck. That's how I learn things. Learn the very bare minimum of it, spend 5 to 10 minutes getting familiar with it, and then just start building it and reference the docs and reference tutorials when you get stuck. So if you're not super familiar with Tailwind, that is totally fine. If this is your first time seeing Tailwind, that is totally fine. You can learn by doing. That is how you can get very, very far, in my opinion. Okay, that is enough talking. Let's dive into the code. So as I said here, I have a brand new Next.js application. We're using Next 13, and I believe the current version of Next is 13.2. So we're using the new app directory in Next, which has the new pages and layouts and error handling, all those things. We're not going to be going into that stuff, but yeah, we're gonna see a little bit about Next.js here. Although this tutorial is not directly a Next.js tutorial, we're going to get familiar with the new concepts of Next 13 if you are not familiar with them already. We're going to see how to add global components in the layout, how to make components in the app directory and stuff like that. Not exactly sure what, I don't have, again, a predefined list of things we're going to be touching on. So as we get to them, we'll figure it out. Okay, so let's delete all of this code here. And I'm just going to have a div that says home page. Okay, and we're going to remove all of this stuff, save, and I'm actually going to remove the styling that comes out of the box with Next.js. To do that, we could just go into this global CSS file and remove everything except for these 3 lines, which you would have added in this Tailwind installation and configuration. Keep these 3 lines, and then I'm just going to delete everything else, which is most of this file. Save this, and now we are set up and good to go. Okay, so when I'm building UIs of any kind, whether it's a clone, when I have some sort of design that I'm going off of, like YouTube here, or like a Figma file, what I like to do is sort of set up the skeleton, like the highest level skeleton of the UI. I like to look at this UI and think of it in terms of boxes, and think of it in terms of the most fundamental building blocks. Because divs and HTML components are just really boxes, right? Like if you dummy this website down into its smallest components, it's just a bunch of boxes. I like to zoom out though and think about what are the biggest boxes that exist on this on the screen here. And I'm not talking about these like literal square boxes. I'm talking about like kind of like the skeleton, like what makes up the scaffold of this website or of this design. And when I look at this, I really only see 3 giant components. I see the nav bar, the top navigation here, with the logo and the search bar, this kind of top navigation. I see the side navigation, that's our second one, and then I see this kind of main page content here, which is our third one. So, if we zoom out to the highest level, I see 3 things. What I'm going to do to make this more visual and more valuable for you guys is I'm going to open up this application called Excellidraw. You've probably seen this in other YouTube tutorials. Okay. I'm going to open up this tool called Excellidraw. You've probably seen other creators on YouTube use this. It's an excellent tool, and it's going to be very useful for us in this tutorial here. So let's just start sketching and think about this UI in terms of boxes, like I was saying. So again, let's draw this out. So this is what I see here. I see this screen, and then I see this top navigation here. I see this side navigation here, and then I just see this like main feed content stuff here. That's it. I see 4 key components. I see the outermost parent, which is kind of like the HTML body, the nav bar, and then these this side navigation. We'll call this top nav. We'll call this side nav, and then we'll call this, I guess, like content or main page content or page content, whatever you want to call it. So let's type that in here. This is our top nav. This is our side. Whoops. Still not an expert at this tool. Side nav. How do you move this? Let me make this a bit bigger. Oh man, this is kind of embarrassing. Why won't this move? Is it locked? There we go. Sorry about that. That was painful to watch, probably. Let's make this XL, side nav, and then we have our main content here. So 3 main things. Well, actually 4, because there's this main container here. Okay, so now that we have sort of like a main skeleton of what our UI is going to look like, I want to start thinking about global components, because in Next.js, in layouts, then Next.js or in Next 13, they introduced this paradigm of layouts where you can have global components. And if we look at YouTube, I see that there are global components here. There's this top navigation bar and the side navigation bar that are just always there on every page. Those are that is what we call global components, right? Because they're just present no matter, they are present no matter what page the user is on. Whether they're on this root homepage, whether they're on their subscriptions page, whatever, they're always there. So how do we declare global components in Next.js? Well, before actually, let's backtrack a bit. We've identified that, okay, we have two kind of global components, these two navigation bars. So before we even think about code, let's establish that, okay? Code is one of my schools of, it's not even my own school of thought, it's just, like a engineering school of thought. It's like, you don't want to just immediately start thinking about the code and jump into the code and start writing code. You want to just, think about the problem first, draw pictures, just think like, okay, what are we facing here? What are we dealing with here? And then once you kind of have a defined problem and you know what to do and you know the solution, then you move into the code. The code is just like a tool to implement your solution. That's kind of a tangent there, but we've kind of thought about this. We have our diagram. We have established that we have two global components, our top nav and our side nav. So now we can start to jump into the code and build this out a little bit. All right, so to declare a global component in Next.js, we want to go to this root layout. Excuse me. We want to go to our root layout file. And this is where we're going to put any components that are going to be visible on all pages of our application. So as you can see here, there's the HTML body. It's like the outermost container of the entire application. And then this children React node here represents the entire application, right? We have our body, and then inside of the body is literally all other components of our React application. So this is the root of the app. So for example, if I were to put some random div in here, hey, this is global, we have that showing up here, and this would be on every page of our app. Now, when we build out more of this navigation here, we're going to build more pages, and I'm going to show you how to actually build like pages and work with the router, etc. Because right now we only have this index page, which is this root page here. But once we create more pages, the way we have currently written this, it will be present on all of those pages. And then children here represents the children, which in this case is our home page. That is why the home page and this is global component here are both showing up on the UI. Okay, so that's a little bit about Next.js and how the layouts work. So what I like to do next when I'm building out these UIs is focus on these like main containers, and I just like to add borders and make the UI start off with something ugly. Get something working. Once it's working, we can make it look pretty. So let's literally try to make something that looks like this with just borders, like red borders and blue borders and green borders and whatever. Once it's we have this kind of the challenging layout part done, then we can focus on the styling and make it look better. So for example, we can, this div here can represent our top navigation. Top navigation. Okay. What I mean by adding borders is we can, literally add some borders. Now this is where we're going to get into the Tailwind meat here. So we're going to add some of the Tailwind utility classes. So let's add a border. So I'm going to say border 2. That means we're going to add a border of 2 pixels in width. And I'm going to say border red 500. Tailwind has a ton of colors that you can use. They have like red, like if you Google like Tailwind colors and you visit this page here, they have like a whole color palette of pretty much every color you would need. Really nice colors. We're going to be using a bunch of these throughout this build. I love these like grays and zincs and stuff. They're just super nice. So yeah, this is how you can specify a color, and then this is sort of like the hue or shade or whatever the proper color word is of the color. You can, 400, 500, etc. It goes from light to dark as you go higher. Okay, so as you can see, we have this red border here, which is our top navigation. Let's get this side navigation and this main content here. And this is where we're going to get into a bit of layout styling, and we can talk a bit about Flexbox. So looking at this diagram over here and looking at YouTube, I can see that this top navigation is vertically in line with these two components here, the side nav and the main content. This is sitting on top of these two. So I have this outermost container here. It has like a vertical aligned property to it. And we can use Flexbox to achieve this. So what I mean here is we can make this container here have we can add the flex property to this container, and we can make the flex direction column. A column is a vertical, and then this parent box here is going to be the parent of the top nav, and these two here. We're going to need an outer div actually that's going to sit outside of these two, so that when we add the column flex on this container, it's going to vertically align this and then this. Then inside of this one, the one that's housing the side nav and the main content, they're horizontally aligned, so we can use flex row on that one. Okay, that's getting a little bit tricky, so let's go back to our code and literally just build out these boxes with divs and borders. So inside of our body, I'm going to create this outermost div that I was talking about. You can add the styling. You can treat the body as the outermost div, but I don't really like to add styling to the body. You could, I guess, if you want, but just for clarity, I'm going to just create an inner div. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, actually, let's start off with this background. Let's make the background the color of YouTube. Our entire application body, I'm just going to make the background, we could say black. Black might be a bit dark. Yeah, something a little lighter, I'm going to say is more like a zinc 900. Yeah. Now again, you can jump over to those Tailwind colors and get more specific if you want and get more picky with these colors. Maybe you'd say, oh well, it's actually stone 900 or zinc 900. Yeah. Feel free to mess around with colors. I'm just going to go with my best judgment here on what I think is going to give us the most accurate representation of YouTube. Okay, so we have this background zinc 900. You know what? I'm going to close this here because that's kind of obnoxious. We don't have much real estate. And now we have this outermost div. Let's add a border to this. I'm going to say border 2, and I'm going to make the border green 500. 500 is usually my go-to when I'm doing this kind of like stupid box stuff. Okay, so we have this green one. This green one is going to represent this one here. In fact, let's make it green to match. Okay. It's not really quite the right height though. So what we're going to want to do is, make this, we want this green thing to be the entire screen, right? We want it to be like the body height. So I don't know if we can actually say height full. Yeah, so we might have to say height screen, which is going to be our entire viewport height. Okay, if you have a typo, it won't work. Okay, so now you can see that green has expanded down. Okay, one other thing that is cool about that extension I was talking about, in addition to the autocomplete that you get, with all these Tailwind utility classes, so you know that you're typing the right thing. If you hover over this or any utility class, it shows you exactly what CSS it's applying. So for example, height screen, it's making the height 100% of the viewport height. The viewport is this viewable window that I'm looking at here. And we're making the height 100% of the viewport. So if you're interested in what CSS is being applied, hover over the utility class and you can find out. Okay, so we have this green one. We have our top navigation, which is red. So let's make our top nav red. These colors aren't really the same. Maybe I shouldn't even mess with the colors in here. I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to worry about the colors, honestly. Okay, green, red, and let's make the text a little lighter because we can't really see it. Yeah, we'll make it text zinc 200. It's kind of like an off-white color there. And as I mentioned, we have this other container, this one that is green somehow. That is a sibling of our top nav. So that's going to be this one here. So that's going to wrap our children, which is going to be our homepage. Our homepage is going to be this kind of like main content here. So now we have a wrapper of the, this, again, I haven't solved this, so I'm thinking and trying to speak at the same time. So if everything I say the first time is not correct, my apologies. I'm kind of thinking out loud here. So we have this, I'm going to give this a border of border 2, border, we'll say blue 500. Okay. Inside of here, we're going to need the side navigation. So we'll say side navigation. Okay. So now, as I mentioned before, the side nav and the main content are siblings, and the parent is this blue one. Okay, so we have all these components defined. However, they're not really arranged correctly. As you can see, the side nav and the homepage are sitting on top of each other, but in the app and on YouTube, they are beside each other. This is where we're going to start to talk about Flexbox. On our blue container here, we want to make the display flex. So again, hover over this, you can see that this is applying display flex to this container. Automatically, the flex direction is going to be row, so we don't need to, explicitly type flex row. You could if you really wanted to, but you only need to do that if you're doing flex column, which is flex call here. We don't need that here. So now you can see they're aligned correctly. What are we missing? Let's add a border to our side navigation. Border 2, we'll say this is going to be border, we're running out of colors here, orange 500. I don't even know if orange and red are different or differentiable on, I can barely do it. The video is probably, let's do 900, it might be 300. Okay, that's a bit better. Okay, and we want this to take up the remaining height, right? Because this side navigation goes all the way down to the bottom of the screen. Our homepage content goes all the way down to the bottom of the screen. It's not just these tiny little boxes. So this parent has a height of the screen. So if we want, it to take up the remaining height, I think we can say flex 1. Would that do it? No? Can we say width full? Not width, sorry. Height full? That might be too much. Yeah, that's going to expand us beyond the, I don't want it to scroll. Okay, now so you have height screen, top navigation, flex, border 2, height, sorry, flex 1. Why isn't that growing? Flex 1, based on my understanding, and essentially tells the container to take up the remaining space available. I was literally just doing this the other day in a different project. I used Flex 1 exactly how I thought I would, like applying the same kind of thoughts as I am here, and it was working. Why isn't it working here? I don't know. We have div, we have this div. What if I made this Flex 1? Why isn't this working? If I say height screen, that's too much, right? Because the screen is more. It's going to add this like additional height here. As you can see, height screen, width screen. Okay, yeah, that fixed. Wait, what did that do? What did that do? I saw something move. Did that do nothing? Maybe it did nothing. Top navigation. Oh, I know why. Okay, so these are by default, like the top nav and these, if we go back to this diagram here, the top nav and then this container of these other two are by default arranged vertically, which is what we want. However, in order to apply that thing I was talking about, flex 1, we need to have the flex property on the parent container. So we can make the parent flex. Now, again, as I mentioned before, the default flex direction is row, so we need to specify flex direction column here. So we're right back to where we were a few seconds ago. However, we can now add, or should be able to add, I'm talking so confidently, but okay, yeah, so that happened to work, and it did exactly what I thought. If I want to use these flex properties on child components, like I am here, the parent needs to have display flex. So it looks the same, without this, it's arranged vertically. However, to apply this, we need we need to specify this here. Perfect. Okay. So now we have this exact same layout over here, right? So this is what I'm talking about, is just start off with like dumb, ugly components like this, like literally, and this is the hard part, for me at least. I find this stuff kind of challenging. Once you get this layout stuff done, then you can really dial in and zoom in and figure out the exact padding on these things, blah blah blah. But once you get this kind of like main kind of layout done, you're good to go, and you can focus more on the making it look pretty. So where should we go now? We have this layout done. I think we can maybe start to focus on the styling of our top navigation here. And then, we can dial in on each of these boxes. And by dial in, I mean kind of like zoom in and look at like the smaller components of each of them. Yeah, let's start off with the top nav. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to extract all of these, well, not all of these two navigation components into their own component files to keep things organized. I'm using TypeScript as well. You don't really have to use TypeScript for this tutorial if you don't want. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. We're not going to be doing too much of like hardcore TypeScript stuff here. However, I recommend you to always use TypeScript, because once you use it and get used to it, you'll probably never ever want to use JavaScript again. However, that's a topic for a different video. Use TypeScript. I recommend you to do it. Yeah, I digress. Okay, so inside of our directory here, in the root app folder, I am going to create two components. I'm going to create the top navigation component, so top navigation.tsx and side navigation.tsx. All right, I'm going to make this empty for now. So we'll say const side navigation. We're going to create a React functional component here. So we'll say export default side navigation. Whoops. I used to have a VS Code extension that gave me a keyboard shortcut where I could just, scaffold out a component, and then I lost it, and I haven't really been bothered to go back and find it again. So if any of you have that extension that I'm talking about or something similar, please let me know in the comments. I would love to get that back, because I don't have to type out all these things all the time anymore. Okay, so for now, I'm just going to make this say side navigation. Actually, what I'm going to do is copy this stuff. I'm going to extract this out. And I'm going to return this. This was the stuff we had in our layout file. Sorry about like the code. It's not the most visible thing. Once I can close this, it'll be better. Save this. Let's copy this. Come to our top navigation, paste it in here, and just change side navigation to top. Whoops. Top navigation. Make this all caps. There we go. And then we will come here, extract this out, and return this value here. Save that. Okay. Let's close the directory now, get some more room. Here we can now bring in our top navigation component. Then down here, we can bring our side navigation. So now we're seeing kind of like, this is much cleaner. We have these global components. We have the same thing visually, but now we have them declared in their own components. You don't have to do this. I'm just kind of trying to show you my best practices with React and separating things into separate components. Okay, let's work on our top navigation here. Now, one other library I'm going to quickly install, and that I actually use in a lot of my, not a lot actually, like all of my personal projects, is React Icons. You are probably familiar with it if you do any sort of front-end development. React Icons is just like kind of a really popular React icon library that has icons on literally everything you'd ever want. You can search for anything, mail, and there are tons of options here. Super easy to use. So I'm just going to be using this here to kind of get these icons to work in our app. And some of these YouTube icons we're not going to be able to get exact, like some of them are so custom, like this shorts one, for example. We'll do our best and try to make it look as similar as possible with the React Icons library. So I'm going to grab this installation command here, and I'm going to come to a terminal and just quickly install this. Okay. All right, so let's start off with the top nav. It looks like it kind of has some padding, so we'll remove these ugly borders in a bit. Trust me, the borders are helpful. Keep them if you want. that I find them useful. I kind of just get rid of them at the end once the main core styling is done. All right, so I am adding padding for the shorthand for that in Tailwind is P4. Again, hover to see that being applied. They have a number system with their numbers. I forget what it's called. What is it actually called? It's like it's like the Tailwind design system. I don't really want to touch too much on that, but I kind of just play around with these numbers, and it basically just ensures you have kind of consistent padding and pixel stuff being applied. Okay, we have our top nav. And actually, you know what? Before we dive into the code, I kind of just did exactly what I said not to do. See, I'm still guilty of these things. Before we even dive into this code, let's break down this top nav a little bit more. Let's zoom in now. And what we did over here by thinking of things in terms of boxes, let's do the same thing with our top navigation. So I'm going to create this box. Now, when I look at this top navigation here, I really, again, only see 3 key components. Well, 4 actually. There's the container, like the outermost container. But then I see kind of this left-hand side stuff, this kind of like search bar center stuff, and then the right-hand side stuff. So I only see three things, and they're spaced. There's like even spacing between them. So I'm already kind of thinking about flexbox and some flex properties we can use, like to justify content and all these things that we'll see shortly here. But again, let's talk about these 3 boxes. We have this kind of left stuff with the logo and the hamburger menu. We have the kind of center search stuff, and then we have our kind of like user menu stuff. All these like buttons over here. So let's write that in. Let's say like the logo. Whoops, that just naturally got bigger. Okay, we have the logo. We have the search. And then we have the, user logo. I'm just going to call it user. And as I mentioned, they are spaced evenly. So we're talking, there's a flex property called justify content, and it's going to allow us to do exactly this, where we can apply this even spacing between them. All right, so now we have kind of a diagram of what this is going to look like. Now let's go back to the code and build this out. So we put some padding on there already. Let's build these containers that we just saw. I like to do that, with just divs. So this is going to be our logo. Create another div with our search input. And then we're going to have the user menu or whatever those icons are. All right, so that's shown up on the UI. We can see that they are currently vertically aligned, and we need them to be horizontally aligned. So let's start thinking about flexbox on this parent container. We want all of the children of this to be horizontally aligned, so we can do that using flex. Again, the default direction of flex is row, so we don't need to specify flex row. It's just out of the box going to do that. And now we're in kind of this problem of, well, what about this? How do we space them out like this, right? If we expand this a bit, at really all screen sizes, there's this even spacing between these 3 things. And this is the flex property I was talking about. We can use justify content, and we're going to want to apply justify content space between. The Tailwind way of doing that is justify between. You can see that here, justify content space between. If I save this, you can see that it spaces them out like this. So I guess the best way to describe space between is it applies like the maximum space available between all of these child components. There's another one called space evenly that does something kind of similar, but it applies that same equal spacing on the sides, which is not what we want. We want space between. We want them to be as far away from each other as possible. Okay, so there we go. Again, we've done this very primitive box structure of our top nav bar. Let's expand this down. Expand this down. I don't know why I say it like that. It's like, what is the opposite of expand? I literally can't think of the word that is the opposite of expand. That is hilarious. I'm gonna take a sip of bubbly. Does anyone drink bubbly? If you drink bubbly, like the sparkling water, let me know in the comments. I'm a huge bubbly fan. This video is not sponsored by bubbly, unfortunately. If I had this video sponsored by bubbly, I think I'd consider myself to have made it. That's my goal, get a bubbly sponsorship. Okay, that's enough about that. Where do we want to go now? Okay, so like I said, we've built these kind of like key components here. We could, we could add some borders if you really want. But yeah, let's do that. Why not? Let's add some borders. Let's say class name border 2 border. We'll make this one red 500. Why not? Let's copy this. Let's make this one blue. I always use red, blue, green, just because it's the basic colors. Okay, there we go. We're gonna have to play with the width of the search bar. You can see that it's pretty wide. It's currently not doing that, but we'll get there when we start actually creating the input, like the text input. All right. So hopefully you're starting to see how these boxes are helpful. Like borders in CSS borders are like the console log of CSS. I find them super helpful. Okay, let's talk about this logo now. I'm not sure how we're going to do this because I don't have a thing available with the premium text, but I bet you on React Icons they have a YouTube logo. Look at that. Look how many of these they have. All right, so the one we want, what does this look like? So it's just literally like any of these. I think this BS YouTube one is probably good. They're all so similar. I don't think you can go wrong. I've tried this one before in another project, and it's very lucrative because it looks exactly the same. However, you'll notice it's much smaller than the other ones. The one downside to React Icons is they're not really standardized. They have like slightly different sizes, so sometimes you have to kind of like do hacky things to make them look exactly how you want. This one is an extreme case of that, and you have to make the size of it like 100 times these other ones, or the average icon if you want it to look similar. I was adding the YouTube API to one of my projects, and I was trying to use this logo here, and I was just having a problem with it, so it was kind of annoying. Anyway, we're going to use this BS YouTube one. Looks pretty much the same as all these other ones. So the way, if you're new to React Icons, you can literally just click on one of these things, and it will copy BS YouTube to your clipboard. A little notification pops up, and then you can come here. Inside of this div here, what I like to do is paste it in like that. This is the component name. And then you can come and auto import this. However, auto import doesn't seem to want to work. Usually in VS Code, if you're using a component or a function or something that's not imported, and you come to it and you press Command period, one of the options in this menu is an auto import, and it's not showing up for some reason, which is really annoying. Usually it does. To import this, you can say at the top here, you want to import from React Icons. The folder we want to go into is going to be the first two letters of this component name. So React Icons /bi. And then inside of here, we're going to want BS YouTube. What? BS, oh, what the heck am I doing? Wow. The first two letters, BS. That was funny, I put the wrong two. Okay, there we go. So now we have this YouTube thing showing up. We also need a hamburger menu. So let's just search menu. And there's a ton of these. I'm going to grab, I don't even know, what does the YouTube one look like? It's like three kind of, are they kind of rounded? I can't tell. I pay attention to detail a lot, so I like to kind of get it as exact as possible. I'm gonna use this HI one. Yeah, let's use HI. See if auto import works now that we have one. No, that's okay. So HI, outline menu. Okay, perfect. Now let's fix the alignment here. This is the container. We're going to need to, again, apply flexbox to make them horizontally aligned, so we can say flex. Okay, and let's make these a bit bigger. To make these bigger, we can add the size prop. Let's try to type 20. 20 is kind of my go-to. That's a bit too small. Let's try 30, 30. Yeah, that's about the same size. The hamburger menu is actually above it. And let's make the size of this 30 as well. This is where the size might be slightly different. I'd say the size is more like a 26, slightly smaller. Okay, now to align, we have them like aligned horizontally, but we want them to be centered vertically. To do that, we can use the align items flexbox property. To do that in Tailwind, we want to say item center. So if you hover over this, align item center. If I save that, you'll notice that these become more centered vertically. Now there's a bit of spacing between these two things. So I'm going to apply the gap property. Gap is another flex property that you can use. And this will just apply spacing between the child components of that container. There's a bit more. So let's say like gap 6. Tailwind, and when I'm building with Tailwind, I literally just have to play around with these numbers and to get what I want. Yeah, I'm gonna say gap 6. That looks about right. I'm gonna remove this border here for now. Okay. Premium. I don't know. I guess I have YouTube Premium. What does the normal one say? Does it say YouTube here, or does it just say nothing? I'm gonna assume it says YouTube. I forget. Do I want to add the YouTube text? Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna need to add another div here because we're gonna need this YouTube text to be right along here with the icon. With text, I'm gonna create a span tag and I'm gonna put YouTube. Again, we're seeing this vertical alignment, so we need to add flexbox to this. There we go, and I'm going to say item center. Okay, again, I'm gonna say gap 2 here to give some spacing. Oh, maybe not 2. They're kind of right next to each other. Maybe 1. Yeah. Okay, and let's make this a bit bigger. To make the text bigger, you can, use the text utility class, and then you can apply a size here. I'm gonna try XL. Yeah, that's about right. And let's make it heavy. So I'm gonna say font semi-bold. There we go. Now, if I really wanted to, I could go try to find a font that's similar to this, to the YouTube font, but that's not super important. I'm just gonna leave it like this. However, this icon is red on YouTube. So to do that, we can add a class to this icon here. When you're using icons, they're actually SVGs. So you would think that you would make the color or the text, actually, sorry, you'd think you'd like, I don't know what you'd think, actually. What maybe, I don't know. I'm just gonna not go down that path. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. When you're trying to change the color of an SVG, you want to use the text CSS property, and we want to say text red. YouTube is, what does red 500 look like? Yeah, it's about that. I guess their logo has the white thing in the center. I'm not going to worry about that. Maybe if you're really wanting to make this, look super, super, super polished, we're going to make it look polished. But if you want to make it go like next level, like YouTube identical, you can try to go, find SVGs on the internet that look exactly like this. For the sake of speed, I'm going to just roll with this. Okay, I really don't like that YouTube text. That's kind of just not my favorite, but whatever. Okay, I'm gonna leave it like that without the bold. Okay, cool. So we have this one container now. Let's talk about the search bar. The search bar is a pretty interesting component because we have this input with this icon here, which might be a bit interesting to build. I'm thinking about that. Let's start off with just a raw input and see what this looks like. Get an input on the screen. Let's get rid of this blue border. Actually, I'm going to keep the blue border for... Actually, no, I'm not. I am not going to keep... Do I want to keep the blue border? You know what? Let's just get rid of the blue border. And we'll add it back if we need to. This is kind of off-centered, so I think to make this center, I'm going to make the items on this parent item center. There we go. That's more vertically aligned. All right, the placeholder of this input is the word search. So we can say placeholder search. Okay. The padding is, let's see what happens if we say padding like 2. Oops, put that in the placeholder. Let's add the class name prop, and let's say padding 2. What does this look like? All right, that's pretty good. The background is the same as the body, which is, I think we said zinc 900. Yep. Now there's no border though. Okay, there's no border. So let's say border, the border is just like a 1 pixel, like it's a very light gray. So we're gonna say border 1 pixel. If you want to specify the, customize the pixel size of any CSS property, you can do this. You can add it in square brackets here. So again, if we look at border 2, I think this is the smallest. I don't even think you can do border 1 with Tailwind. I don't think this is a class. 2 is the smallest one. That'll do border with 2 pixels. I don't know why they don't offer 1 as the smallest, but whatever. If you want to do 1 pixel, which I do very often, I have to specify it in a custom value here with the square brackets. Okay, so let's save this. Now we have a border. However, it's very ugly, so let's make the border zinc, I don't know, like 600, maybe 700. Yeah, that looks pretty similar to the YouTube one. Like the color-wise, we have a lot of work to do on the roundedness of it. Okay, the placeholder could be a bit lighter. To change the placeholder color, you can use, I think, the placeholder pseudo class. So that's this, placeholder colon, and then you can just simply write any CSS class you want, and that'll apply to the placeholder. So if I say like zinc 600, yeah, so that changes it. That's a bit too dark. Let's try zinc 500. There we go. That might be a bit too light, actually. Now this is like super small details, and if you don't care about this stuff, like, my apologies. I'm just trying to make it look as accurate as possible. I want to show you that you can actually, build pretty much identical UIs to these applications, or build whatever you want with Tailwind, and just show you how powerful it is. That's why I'm spending so much time on these little details. Okay, I'm gonna make this 500 here, and where do we want to go now? We have this kind of like focus ring. So on YouTube, the focus ring, or like when you focus on the input, it has this blue outline. Okay. Now, when it comes to focus rings, are kind of tricky, because when it comes to an input, there's a border, there's an outline, and then there's like the focus ring. So there's like 3 things, and it's kind of annoying, honestly, styling inputs. But we will figure it out. So let's say, again, we can, similar to this placeholder pseudo class, there's another pseudo class called focus colon, and we can indicate what styles we want on focus when the input is focused, or clicked on is synonymous with focus. I want to say ring. I remember using ring. Yeah, like ring 1. What happens here? I don't know. Maybe let's just try. I have a project, actually, that I have a project that I'm going to open, and I'm going to paste in styles where I was styling an input, and I was facing a very similar problem. And I spent, probably an hour trying to play with this stupid styling of an input. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paste these styles from this other project in here. There we go. So this one was for, it had a blue, which is kind of similar to what we're dealing with. But I'm going to eliminate these as we go, because this is some media query stuff that I don't think we need. And we're going to get into media queries in a bit here when we talk about responsive styling. Let's get rid of this width full thing. We'll add things back as we need them. Let's just get rid of all this, honestly. But I think for the most part, the core styling is what we want. It happens that yeah. Again, this code will be linked in the repo below if you need it. But essentially, this is the style. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about, the focus ring, which I don't really get. Like, why are there three things? There's a border, a ring, and an outline. It's kind of annoying. Like, you have to make the outline non-focus. I don't know. Weird. Anyway, these are the styles we're going to roll with. Well, we actually need to add some padding. Let's add our padding back. P3. That might be good. Okay. This one's a bit different though, this project, because remember the background in our case is actually 900, but then there's a border. We had that 1 pixel border that we got rid of. So we're gonna say border zinc. I think it was like a 700 we did. Yeah, this is a bit like fatter vertically than we want. So I'm gonna make the padding in the X direction 3, but the padding in the Y direction 2. That makes it a bit shorter. Maybe padding X should be 4. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. Why is this input so small though? It's like not small, good at all. So let's talk about, maybe we can talk about media queries now. I think if we go to YouTube and we shrink it down, I think on mobile, YouTube has a mobile app, so most of the mobile users are on the app, I would assume, and so they probably don't optimize their web app mobile experience, but we're gonna try to replicate it. However, on mobile, I'm going to keep the side nav present. What do I mean by that? I'm gonna leave this here. On theirs appears on tablet screen sizes, but on mobile it's gone. The reason they do that is because they have this drawer menu. Building the drawer menu is not really that easy. It's beyond the scope of this tutorial. If you're interested in how to build a drawer with Tailwind, let me know. You need to use some JavaScript. But yeah, let me know if you're interested in building a drawer, and maybe I'll make a separate video on that. But just to avoid complicating things, I'm going to not build the drawer that corresponds with this hamburger menu, and I'm just going to keep these icons here on all screen sizes, and then as it gets larger, the text will appear. Okay. What was I talking about? Now I forget what I was even, like, why are we talking about the search input? Yes. So on mobile, the search input is not there. Okay, they have this icon instead. So how do we build this? So the way it's recommended with front-end development is you want to take a mobile-first approach. What that means is you want to write your styles for a mobile screen size and then write media queries to change the styles as the screen grows. Mobile first is that. You start with mobile and then you kind of expand outwards. Not mobile first would be kind of the opposite, where you write all your styles for like desktop and then you have to write kind of the opposite media queries to shrink the components or change the styles as you go down. I recommend mobile first approach because that's just the recommended sort of, it's like a standard approach when you're doing development. Okay, so why are we talking about this? Because on mobile, we saw that the search input is actually not even there. So, like I said, mobile first, we want to write our styles for mobile, so we're going to say hidden. By default, it's hidden because we're saying that the default is mobile. That is what mobile first is. Then at a certain screen size, we want it to appear. We don't want it to always be hidden. That would suck. YouTube search is so valuable. We can see that at like a certain screen size, like I don't know, like 700-ish pixels, it starts to appear. We don't have to make ours exactly, like the same pixel media query. To do what we're trying to do is we want to specify a media query, and we want to say at a certain screen size, we want to change the style of this input. What do we want to change about this input at this certain screen size? Well, we want to make it visible. To do that, we can add a media query. There are media queries within Tailwind that exist. There is, small, medium, large, and extra large, and max XL. So to declare a media query, you can say, okay, well, at say a medium screen size, I want this to have display flex. Flex is, kind of the opposite of hidden. There's also, I think, is unset one? I don't think it is. I don't think that would work. Yeah, no. So we're basically saying mobile screen sizes, this thing is hidden. When the screen hits a medium screen size, let's make it the display flex, which removes the hiddenness of it. So let's bring this out. If I come down to small screen sizes, the search is hidden. Once I start to expand out, once we hit medium, it starts to appear. You could specify small if you want to. You just have to play around and see kind of like what works. So small. Maybe we'll make it appear at small. Yeah. I don't know. Do as you see fit, and this might change depending. You know what? I'm gonna keep it medium because we're gonna add this like circle or this search icon thing, and this is gonna take up a bit of space. So we're gonna keep this medium. Okay. Now the width is being weird. I want the width of this input to be much larger because on YouTube it sort of, you know, grows as the screen grows, and at large screen sizes it has like a nice size. So I think with this what I'm going to do is let's shrink this down a bit more, and we'll close the console here. I'm going to put the width responsibility on this, you know, container of the input. This is again where I think I deleted this border. This was the border I debated deleting so hard. I'm going to bring it back, and I'm going to make the min width. To do a min width, I think you say min-w, and then you can specify like the min width. So I'm going to say min width 300 pixels. Okay, to make the input actually stretch the entire box, we're going to say width full here. Width full is width 100%. So it's going to be the full 300 pixels. That's the minimum width. We don't want it to be any smaller than that. However, at certain screen sizes, which I'm going to say, I don't know, large, let's make the width of this, I don't know, 800 pixels. I just start with a random number. This is quite large. Might even be like over. Okay, that might be a bit too big. Let's try 600. Yeah, that seems about right. Maybe 620. Because we need room for that icon thing there. Okay, so what does this look like? We have kind of, you know, at large screen sizes, it just kind of stays there at 620. Once we get down, and it shrinks to a smaller screen size or a smaller width, but no smaller than 300. So on mobile first, okay, now you're seeing this thing here. We're actually going to need to, I guess, apply this hidden stuff to the parent of the input, right? We want the parent to be hidden by default. There we go. Then at medium screen sizes, it's going to appear, but it's going to be a width of 300. We have not yet hit large, so it's going to be maintained at 300. Once we hit a large screen size, it's going to stretch to 620 pixels. Cool. That is pretty good to me. Nice. Okay, now we can remove this border. Perfect. Okay. Okay. All right, now let's build this little interesting thing here where we have this kind of like button directly beside or on top of this input. I'm not sure what the best approach is here. You know, if we could have this input. So the border of this input ends here. So it's not like an input that goes all the way around and then this thing sits on top of it. I think these are just direct siblings of each other. What you can do to find that out is actually use this inspect tool here and like look. Yeah, so it looks like, okay, it looks like they have a button right beside this div with the input. Yeah, so I was going to, my first thoughts were to use absolute positioning. I was going to have like the parent container be relative positioning, then position this thing absolute. Using absolute positioning, I was going to put it on the right side here. But it looks like we can just make them direct siblings and kind of shape their border radiuses to look like it's kind of one thing. Okay, so to summarize, this is an input that is rounded on one side but square on the other. Then this sibling thing with the icon is the opposite. It's square on this side but rounded on the other. Holistically, it looks like one giant rounded thing, which is kind of cool. I like when websites have that icon thing. It looks cool. All right, so how do we do this? We have this container that previously had the red border. We have our input. I'm going to create this div. This div is going to represent this container of the search icon here. We need a search icon, so let's jump over to React Icons and search for the search icon. Searchception. Okay, so then let's grab, I don't know, probably this one, gr search. Let's import this from gr search, and let's put this inside of this div here. Like that. Okay, so that's appearing there. You can't see it though, it's kind of dark. Let's make the, let's add some class stuff. We'll make this text sync 200. That didn't change. Another thing, yeah, this should automatically be white or Zinc 200. And sometimes, again, because the React icons library aren't standardized icons, you run into issues like this where some icons just don't do what you want. And it's kind of hard to change them. And so it forces you to use a different one. Okay, so gr search is not going to work. The reason I know that is because this should, like, it's not even turning Zinc or like white with, I'm explicitly applying this class to it. And it should do that automatically because if you remember on our layout, we said text Zinc 200, so all the children should have that by default. Like this HI menu thing here, right? It just was default white. So screw that icon. Let's grab a new one. Let's use blah blah. Oh, why do I care so much? Some of them have different length of like stems. Let's just use BI search, whatever. Okay, BI search. BI search. BI search. There we go. See, it's default white. All right, let's add a border here, or let's make this. This is going to be the div here that I'm talking about. The background is, pretty much the exact same as the border of the input, which we have currently as Zinc 700. So let's say bg Zinc 700. Okay, there we go. Now we need to play with the border radiuses of the input and this thing to kind of mirror each other. So right now we have our input rounded full somewhere on here. Yeah, we have this rounded full class, which is making it completely rounded on all four corners. We only want it to be rounded like that on these two corners here, the top left and the bottom left. So how do we do that? We can say rounded TL for top left full. Okay, so now you can see that looks really weird. We want to do the same thing, but for the bottom left. So BL full. Awesome. Cool. Now it's square on that side. Let's zoom in. What is this doing? Okay. Now we want to do the opposite for this thing. Let's add some padding of like 3 here. Maybe 4. No. Let's do PX for PY3. You know what? Maybe PX. Let's even live on the wild side and do 5. Okay. And then we want to do the opposite. We want to say, for this div, we want the rounded, we want top right to be full, and we want the rounded bottom right to be full. There we go. So now it has this this look as though it is 1. Let's make this icon a little bit bigger. 20. 30 is way too big. 20 is usually my go-to starting point. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Cool. Okay, so that's how you can add that. Okay, and let's quickly add this microphone icon here. Okay, how do we do that? Let's go just search for mic. Cool, we'll grab this BS mic fill here. We already have stuff coming from BS, so we can use the same folder here. And the BS mic fill is going to be a sibling. Whoops, what happened? Sorry, I just, yeah. It's going to be a sibling of the, whoops, what is happening to my browser? It is going to be the sibling. Okay. It is going to be, okay. It is going to be the sibling of the input and this search thing. So we have our input and the search thing, which we might actually need to wrap in its own container. So that's the parent of that. What do we want to do here? I'm gonna need to, because we're gonna need to make this class flex. Okay, now we're running into some issues. I'm gonna just say width full here. There we go. So we just added a parent. So whenever you add a parent, it kind of messes up the child styling. If I got rid of width full here, what would happen? Yeah, okay, we need width full here. All right, so we have this parent of these two things. We want to add a sibling of this, which is going to be that the mic icon. So we'll add this wrapper div. We need a wrapper div because we want to apply this kind of like circular stuff to it. So we need this wrapper div, and we can say BS mic fill. Okay. Let's add the flex property to this container as well, and let's make it centered vertically. There we go. Now, since we have these two children, we have this div and this div. These are the two children of this container here, and this container has flex blocks applied to it. We want a little bit of spacing here, so let's just say gap 2. Maybe, yeah, gap 2 is probably good. We'll see what it looks like with the circular thing. So for that circular thing, we can say BG, so it's pretty dark, so we'll say zinc 800, maybe even 900. I mean, it can't be 900 because our background's 900. BG zinc 800, we'll say padding 3. Okay, and we'll say rounded full to make it circular. There we go. It's kind of like oblong though. Is that just me? P2? Ah. Okay, we'll make it P4. There we go, it's circular. Okay. Now to add hover state, because you'll notice that if you hover this thing, it gets a bit lighter. It's very similar to these other pseudo classes. It's basically the same thing. We can just say, use the hover pseudo class, and we can say BG zinc and then some different color to do this thing, this lighter color. And then you can see that on YouTube, it has a pointer cursor, the little finger. So to do that, we can say cursor, pointer. Save that, and now that appears. All right, let's move on to this user menu container here. So on YouTube, we can see that there's like this user menu thing. The reason I'm saying user menu is because this little thing that pops up is a menu. We're not going to be building this menu. That's kind of, again, beyond the scope of this tutorial and what I'm trying to show you here. You could use a component library like headless UI. I have a few builds coming in the future, in the near future, that use headless UI with Tailwind, and we'll be building components like this menu here. But for this UI tutorial, we're going to be focusing on just kind of the image and these two icons here. Okay, so for the image, what should I do for the image? Okay, first, let's go here, and we're going to create the two icons. So each one, it's going to be similar to these here. I'm actually going to copy and paste this, put it down here, and put two of these here. Okay. So these are stacked on top of each other now. So I want to make the flex property of this container, or I want to add the flex property to this container to make them horizontally aligned. And I want to add, if you look at YouTube here, there's spacing, about equal spacing to between each of these three things. So let's add the gap property. We'll say gap 3. Okay, we might adjust that in a bit, but that looks fine. And let's go get the 2 proper icons. So it looks like we want, we're gonna need a notification icon, so a bell, as well as this kind of like recording camera thing. So let's search for bell, I guess. Let's grab this one here, BS bell. Add it to our BS imports here, and we'll change this rightmost one to that. Okay, and then let's go grab a camera. Or you could search like film or something, I'm not sure. Maybe camera. We're not gonna find this exact one. This one's pretty custom to YouTube, this camera thing. So let's, is there one with like a plus icon? I don't really like that one. I'm just gonna use BS camera video. BS seems to have some good stuff. All right, let's change this to BS camera video. Now these are a bit big, or sorry, they're a bit small, the icons. So let's make the size of this 22-ish. Yeah, it's about right, size 22. And now this is like, they're a bit large, like the circular part. So I'm gonna change this to P2 for these two here. That seems more about right. Now you'll notice on these, well maybe P3, but you'll notice on these that there's no circular thing by default. The circular div only appears on hover. So to do that, we can just remove this background zinc 800 here. And now this will only have the circular thing on hover. However, it's a bit light. I might darken that a bit. So let's remove this green border. Okay, and then let's change this zinc 500 to maybe like 700 for all three of these. Yeah, there we go, that looks good. Nice. Nice, okay, and then I might make this actually P3. Wait, that's huge, what did I just do? P3. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Cool, okay, now let's do this image. The image is going to be inside of a div as well. I'll put I for now. What do we want to do for the image? I'm gonna go to Twitter. I was gonna say Unsplash, but I don't want to get like a super large image. And I'm just gonna find like, I'm gonna go literally get Elon Musk's image here. So I'm gonna click on Elon Musk's image. I'm gonna say copy image address. This is a publicly available image because it's being served on Twitter. It's somewhere on Twitter's like storage buckets or something. Again, this code is gonna be available in the repo linked down below. So you can grab the link to this image if you don't have Twitter and you can't go to Elon's profile. You can grab it from my repo. Okay, so I'm gonna copy this. We will be able to access it from our app. We want to put that image here. So let's use a next image. So we want to import image from next image. And we're going to make the source equal to this thing we just grabbed. And next image requires like a height and width property. So we'll say height of, let's try 50 for now, and we'll adjust if we need to. And we'll say width of also 50. We're going to make this like fully rounded. Okay, now something might break, and yeah, this is expected. So in Next 13, you need to specify the domain, or if you're accessing public images like we are right now, we need to access, or we need to configure our Next.js application, and we need to add this domain that image lives to our next config file to tell Next.js that we're going to be reading images from these remote domains, as they call them. To do that, it's quite simple. We can just go to our next config file, like this, And inside of this next config object, TypeScript tells us all this stuff on here. We want to add this images property. Now, is this an array? I think it's an array. Wait, no, sorry. I think inside of images, there's an object, yeah, and we can, again, see all these things thanks to TypeScript, but we want to talk about remote patterns. So we want to specify a remote pattern here. This is going to be an array. This is going to be an array of objects, and each of these objects is where we can specify the domain at which these images live. So we're going to say the protocol of this domain is HTTPS, right? HTTPS is the protocol. If we go back to Twitter, I shouldn't have closed that. Can I reopen Twitter? Okay, so yeah, this is if I just copy image address and I go to it, this is the domain we're talking about. So it's HTTPS. The host name is kind of what's important. The host name is going to be this, pbs.twitterimage.com. This is some domain that Twitter owns where their images are stored, some bucket that's located on some server somewhere. And then for the path name, we just want to specify the stuff after the path name. We don't want to obviously type every image that we're going to use from here, so we could just say /star to indicate kind of like, the star is just kind of a placeholder for everything after. Okay, so we can save that. We can go off of Twitter now. To activate these changes, we're going to need to recompile our application. So let's just quit the development server and restart it. Okay, now let's refresh the browser, and we should be able to, which we can't. What do you mean? PBS dot is not configured in your images? What are you talking about? It's right there. .com/profile images. Maybe I have to do a hard restart on the browser. Okay, this is weird. So doing this 9 out of 10 times has solved the problem for me before. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I'm missing something. pbs.twitterimage.com/ do I have to include like profile images or something? I haven't seen that before. Weird. npm run dev. I might troubleshoot this. Okay, let's refresh. Still the same thing. pbs.twitterimage.com is not configured under images. Okay, it literally is right there. Weird. Okay, what I might do sometimes is Next caches their builds in this Next folder. I'm going to try deleting this and recompiling to force it to rebuild. Unless, like, I don't know what is happening here. And let's refresh. I don't know what's happening. I have done this in other projects before. You know what? Maybe I missed. Is this supposed to be a double star? Maybe it's a double star for the placeholder. Is it something stupid like that? I remember facing this problem a while ago. I think this is in the next doc somewhere. There we go. Okay, so it was the double star. Sorry about that, guys. The double star is what you need to do for the placeholder, not just a single star. So, yeah. Okay, so on Twitter, sorry, not Twitter, on YouTube, the profile image is rounded, so let's go do that. How do we want to do this with the div? Why is this complaining? Oh, I think it needs an alt. The alt is just going to be user image. I don't know. That's if the image doesn't load, what it will display instead. Okay, let's make the class name of this outer div. Let's add the rounded full property here. We might want to add this actually to the image itself. There we go. Is this going to resize nicely? Yep, okay. Rounded full. I actually don't know if we need this div. Usually I put a div around my images if they're like, you know, a resizable image. but in this case, we should be safe just doing the image by itself. It's a bit big though, so I might make the size 40 instead of 50. Ooh, that looks awful. Okay, I just spoke too soon. I'm gonna actually add that div back here. There we go, the rounded div helps. Whenever I deal with images in HTML, I get so frustrated because I have to like relearn it every time because I don't do it that often. But then when I do it, I have to like, research like the CSS properties like object fit and object cover and all that stuff. And it's kind of annoying, but whatever. This seems to have solved it. The vertical alignment is slightly off. So here I'm just going to say items center, and that will bring the profile picture down a bit. Cool. And we could add cursor pointer to our image as well, or to this div, I guess. Cursor pointer. There we go. And then if you had like a UI component, if you click on this, it would open up the menu, like on YouTube there. Which, like I said before, I have future builds coming where we will be doing that. We'll work more with UI components. Right now, we're just going for the purely visual part of the app. Cool, okay. So now our top nav is done. It's responsive. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Tailwind has built us the top navigation. I guess what we could do, well, what should we do? Let's remove this border, and just to, make this input controlled, let's add some state. Why not? Const, we're gonna say, I'm gonna make the input stateful. We'll add some state to it just because, again, why not? I'm gonna say search and set search. This is going to be the search term that the user types into the search input. We're gonna bring in the useState hook and initialize it as an empty string. Now, Next.js is going to get mad at you when you try to bring in the useState hook because of this new paradigm introduced in Next 13. This new paradigm is client components and server components. In the app directory, components are by default server components. We cannot use things or any sort of React hook in a server component. We need to tell Next.js this is going to be a client component. I don't want to go too deep on what a client component and what a server component is, but they're pretty self-explanatory. A server component is essentially just a component that is rendered on the server, the Next.js server, and then it's streamed to the browser and rendered there. Whereas a client component, things actually happen in the browser. The rendering takes place in the browser. On the server, there is no concept of state, or there's no concept of hooks, right? React is not available on the server. It's only available in the browser or the client. So to use anything React hook related, use state, use effect, anything, you need to declare the component as a client component. Okay. The input now, we can make the value of this equal to the search state, siege, and then we want to add the onChange function, and we just want to add a callback here that is going to set search to be the event.target.value. This is going to be the current value that the user has typed into the search. Okay, so now this is stateful, and we can type in here, lol, 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 lol. Okay, perfect. Nice. Okay, let's talk about the side navigation now. So on YouTube, again, we're talking mobile first. We have a side nav that is going to look like this. And again, we are going to display the icons on mobile, although YouTube doesn't show it till about the tablet screen size. So you can see that there's a series of icons here that can be clicked. Each one of these things has an icon and then a piece of text. For example, home has the home icon with home, shorts and with the S icon and shorts. And then when you expand this out, the styling changes, but there's still the same two properties, the icon and the text. So this is kind of interesting. We have this multi-select menu where there's multiple options, and then each one has an icon and a display text. and then they're being rendered differently depending on the screen size. And so I'm going to show you how we can build a menu like this. This is kind of a common application when you're building any sort of web app. And I'm going to show you how I would kind of tackle building out this multi-select menu here. So let's jump over to our code. Let's close top navigation. We're going to be done with that, and let's close next config. We're not going to need that anymore. We don't need layout. We don't really need page anymore right now as well. Side nav is going to be our main focus. Now, as I just mentioned, we have this arrangement of menu items here. So whenever I'm creating one of these menu items, I usually create an array that represents each of these things. But again, before we talk about the code, let's go back to our little diagram here, and we'll zoom in on this side nav thing. Let's make a little arrow down here. This Excel draw tool is so cool. I think you can do a lot more cool things with it too. Like notes, and like I could do like an API design video and stuff all in here. It's really, really nice. So our side nav is basically just a container that has, like a bunch of these things. Can I like click and drag and duplicate? Ooh, I can. This is it. I don't know how many there are. It doesn't really matter. That's all this thing is. So on mobile, we saw that, this was a bit smaller. I'm not going to adjust this. Should I adjust the size? Yeah. No. It's a bit smaller on mobile. I won't do the responsiveness here. But basically, we have just a container with a flex direction of column, right? It's just a bunch of vertically aligned little tiny containers. And then inside of each of these containers, let's look at YouTube again. Let's move this over. Close the console. Inside of here, this is just another container. Now, okay, let's talk about responsiveness here. On mobile, this will have your little icon at the top, and then like the text at the bottom. Let's make this like large, a little smaller. Okay, this is your mobile design. Then we have our desktop tablet, we'll call it, where it's the same container. However, we have the icon here. Let's make this a bit bigger so it does that. We have the icon here and the text over here. You can say text. Okay, like this. So, how do I move just that? Okay. So on mobile, we have a flex direction of column, but then on desktop tablet, we have a flex relationship here, or a flex direction of row. So when we can start thinking about media queries here, right? We have like our flex on this thing. We're going to have another flex on each one of these child things. But this is going to be, flex column. But then once we get to like a certain medium screen size, it's going to be, still flex, but I'm going to guess like, medium. We're going to change it to flex row. Cool. And that's how we're going to be able to change the flex direction based on our screen size here, which is really cool. Okay, so now we have like kind of a rough idea of what the structure of this item is. Let's go to the code and define these things. So as I mentioned, I like to create an array of each of these things. Now this is going to be an array of objects, and like we saw before, each item has a piece of text and an icon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an interface. This is the most TypeScript we'll see in this video. I'm going to create an interface that is going to represent a menu item, or the structure of a menu item. Each menu item is going to have an icon, which, how do you declare the type of an icon? Let's do icon. I've done this before. icon base. Okay, let's do icon type. Okay. So the icon is of type icon type, and then there is, like some piece of text, which is just string. This goes back to exactly what I said. This interface represents the structure of each menu item, the text and the icon. Cool. Then we can create an array of menu items. This is going to be an array of menu items. This is how we can declare this in TypeScript. And each menu item is going to have an icon and a piece of text, because each one of these objects is represented by this menu item interface. Okay, so let's talk about home. The home one has the home icon and then like the word home for the text. So let's go to React Icons and let's get a search for home. We'll get this HI home here. So we'll duplicate this import, but let's go to HI home. So the icon for home is going to be HI home. Whoops. And the text is going to be home. That's the string home. Okay, let's create one more in this array, and then we'll render it on the UI just so I can show you what I'm talking about, and then we can just easily add the rest. Okay, the next one is going to be our, I think it's shorts, and this is the one where we're not going to be able to get that icon. I don't even know what I'm going to do for this one here. I might have to do just like a YouTube logo. Let's just search for shorts. Let's see, maybe if there's one. No. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the YouTube logo again. But I'm going to try this one, TFI YouTube. Let's see what happens here. Usually when you go into these like weird triple lettered folders, it gets kind of weird. But you know what, we'll see. I don't want to discriminate against folders. TFI YouTube. The text for this one is going to be shorts. Okay, let's see what this looks like and what I'm talking about. So our side navigation is currently this orange border, but inside of here, we're going to want to iterate through our menu items. So we can say menu items.map. We want to take each item, and for each one, we want to create some sort of like HTML component. And we're going back to our little diagram here. We're kind of like we're iterating through a bunch of these things in JavaScript, and we're creating an HTML component that is just going to be a div with this icon and the text inside of it. That is what we're going to create for each one. Okay, so this div is represented by this outermost box here. So let's, inside of here, let's show the icon. So we'll say, how do we do this? Item, I think we could honestly just go like this .icon. I don't like this, so I think there's a better way to do this. But we'll start off with this. Item.icon as like a component. Then inside of here, we'll create a span tag. Inside of the span tag, we want to render the item's text. There we go. So now you can see what I'm talking about, where we have this icon and the text. They look kind of ugly though, but we'll work on that. I think, okay, hang on. I think there's a better way to do this. I'm gonna say icon base, and then is there like an icon? I don't know how to do this. There's a way you can do it as icon base. There's some prop here. Okay, I'm not sure, honestly. I don't want to confuse you with that, so I'm just going to say item.icon. And the reason I'm doing this like React component, like this HTML syntax, is because item.icon is a React component, right? So that's why I'm using the syntax here. Okay, let's now work on the styling. Let's shrink this out a bit and let's make this look mobile. Okay, so each one, there's like a pretty intense padding here, and then there's the flex direction of column. So again, we're doing mobile first, so let's add styles as if we're on mobile. We're going to say flex column. Okay, and let's add a gap of like 3 to do some spacing. That might be a bit much. Let's do 2. Let's add a padding of 3. And let's do we want them to be centered kind of, these are centered. We want them to be centered horizontally, so we can say justify, or sorry, items center. Okay, there we go. Now the text is very small. So let's say class name, we'll say text small. Might even be a bit smaller, but I don't want to get too small. Let's see what access looks like. Home. Yeah, okay. And then the icons are pretty large, so we'll say item.icon and we'll say size is equal to like 20, maybe even 30. Oh, whoa, not 430. 30? Nice. Okay, that's about the size. And there might even be a bit more padding. It looks like there's a very slight padding on the outside. So in this container here, I'm going to say like P of like 1 pixel. And on this icon, we want to make the border slightly rounded. Well, how does this look? So on hover, there's a background. So let's say hover, we'll say BG zinc like 600. Maybe 700. A little darker. Yeah, maybe even 800. Oh, let's do 700, whatever. Okay, and then you'll notice that they're rounded. I might even do a bit more padding. Let's do P4, maybe even 5. Okay, let's do P5, and let's make these rounded. So we'll say rounded. We don't want to do rounded full. Let's do rounded large. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks about right. Let's remove this ugly border, this orange one here. Okay, now you can see that's what we're getting here. Perfect. Maybe I went a bit aggressive on the padding. 4. Yeah, cool. They look more square to me, but that's okay. Maybe I can decrease the gap slightly. 1. Yeah, okay, that looks a bit better. Okay, perfect. You know what? 2. Let's remove the blue border. Where's that blue border? That must be on our home page. So let's go back to our page. No, it's actually not. It must be on our layout then. Let's get rid of this. We might add this back later, but okay. So we have this now. Perfect. Let's now talk about, now remember this is mobile first, right? So, but when we hit a certain screen size, we want it to do that vertical thing, sorry, horizontal thing where the text gets bigger and then it stretches out to be that horizontally placed thing. Okay, so this is where we're going to want to tap into our media queries in the flex direction here. So let's say at like large screen sizes, we want the flex direction to be row. Okay, whoops, this is totally the wrong container I'm looking at. We want to be on the menu item here. Wait, let's add that media query, large flex. Okay, so you can see that we have that. However, the text is very small, so let's also add a media query on the text. So we're going to say at large screen sizes, let's make the text base. I think that's like the base size. Let's see what it looks like on YouTube. Yeah, it's about that size, maybe even large. We'll do large, why not? Whatever. No, base. Okay, and you'll notice that the gap is much more significant. So here, we're gonna make it, on mobile, when it's vertically aligned, we're gonna do gap 1, but on large screen sizes, we're going to say gap, let's do 6. There we go, that looks more like it. Perfect. Nice. Now this is where the width of this container is also much more, right? It's still a bit small. We want this, we need the width of this side nav to be much larger. So let's add a border back actually. Border 2, border red 400. Let's make the width of this. On mobile, again, we're doing mobile first. We'll say width auto, or we don't even need to do width auto. Let's just do at large screen size. Let's make the width like 300 pixels or something. I just always start with 300. That's a bit big, so let's do 260. Yeah, that seems about right. And then there's also more padding on the sides here. So we had like a padding of 1. Let's do on large screen sizes, let's do a padding of like, or we'll do padding X of like 4 maybe. That's a bit much. Let's do 3. There we go. It's looking whoops. Oh, I always keep doing back. Okay. Maybe they look a bit, this is a bit too much padding. So let's do P4, but then on large screen sizes, let's do PY as like 2, maybe 3. I want to keep it more longer. Yeah. Maybe 2 actually, yeah. PY2. Yeah, is there any space in between? No, they're directly touching. As you can see on YouTube, the currently selected page that you're on, it has a different background color. So for example, on the home page, the home one, it indicates like there's a selected stuff. There's why am I having such a tough time explaining this? If it is selected, it has the background to indicate that it is selected. So if I go to the shorts page, you can see that shorts is now selected, and this is based on the URL. So how do we do that? What we can do is add another property to our menu item that will indicate what page of the application it corresponds to. So for example, the home page will be the index route, shorts will be the shorts route, etc., etc. And then down here in our HTML, we can check the URL and say, are we on, or are we currently on that page? If we are, then let's style this element to indicate that we are on that page. So we can add a third property to our menu item interface here. And we'll call this, I guess, href, or like what's it? Maybe not href. What's a better name? I don't want to say like route. I guess we'll say path name. Path name is pretty good. Okay, so now this is complaining because we don't have path names on our menu items thanks to TypeScript. So for our path name, we're going to have, for the home, it's just our index route, which is currently what we're on. For shorts, it's going to be the path name / shorts. Okay, why is this complaining? Shorts is not a time, well, 2 types /. Oh, what the heck? Why did I make this? What am I doing up here? This is a string. I don't know what I was doing up there. Sorry about that. Okay, path name is a string. So now we have a way to, when we're iterating through these menu items, we can detect if we're on that page by reading from the URL. So how do we get the path name though from the URL? So I think Next 13 just introduced a new hook called use path name, I want to say it's called. I've used it before, I just maybe forget the name. They might have deprecated it though with, let's go to the Next 13 docs. So beta, I know they have these routes here. Blah, 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 where is it? They have it, oh, here we go. Use path name, okay, use path name. This is the one we want. So I don't know why it's not auto importing. My auto import just doesn't seem to want to work for some reason today in this tutorial. So let's copy this import statement here. We're going to need to make this a client component because we might get that same error we saw earlier. Use client. If we want to use any React hook, we need to make it a client component. Okay. Sorry, let's go back to the docs here. How does this exactly work? So path name is equal to path name. I forget what path name is actually called. So let's log the path name. I usually just do, here is path name. I just log stuff if I don't know what it looks like. Let's come to our console here. And here is path name /. So you see how now we have a way to say, okay, is the path name equal to the path name of this item? If so, style it differently i.e. add this, background color. Okay. If I go to, I'm going to need to create another. This is where we're going to get into like Next.js pages and the client-side routing, or just the page routing. I'm going to need to create the page for the shorts to demonstrate this. So to do that, inside of your app, in the app directory, I'm going to create a folder called Shorts. Inside of Shorts, I'm going to create page.tsx. This is going to be the React component that is going to render when we are on the Shorts page. And the way the Next router works is these folder names correspond to the route name in the URL. So when we define this page file here, whatever we put in this React component is going to render when we visit the Shorts route in our browser. That is how the Next router works. So I'm going to copy and paste this and just throw it into here. And I'm going to call this Shorts. So this is the Shorts page, and we will change this to Shorts page. So now that I have a page defined, if I go to localhost 3000/shorts, we are now on the Shorts page. And so now you can very clearly see what I meant earlier at the very beginning of the tutorial by global components. I'm on a completely different page now. I'm on the Shorts page, clearly. We can see in the URL and this component. However, these navigation components are still there because we defined them in the global layouts file here. So that is what I meant by global component, if it wasn't clear. Hopefully this clarifies that for you. Okay, so we have now a way to detect what page we're on thanks to our use path name hook. Let's take a look at what path name looks like when we're on the Shorts page. Yeah, path name /shorts. Let me zoom in here. It's a bit small. Okay, so that is, again, we're going to see does this correspond to this? Okay, so let's get on mobile. I'm pretty sure the home is. Oh, on mobile, though, they don't have it. I'm going to change it so that it is. They don't have the background state there. I mean, you could add a media query if you really wanted to, but we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so how do we apply this conditional styling now? Well, we're going to need to use some JavaScript, right? Because we have this JavaScript variable that's coming from this React hook that is going to be the value of the path name, and we need to check if it is equal to the path name of each particular item. So we're going to need to use some JavaScript. So inside of our styles of this menu item component here, I'm going to just cut this string out and change this to a JavaScript template literal string using backticks. So we can use the curly brackets with the backticks. The reason I'm doing that is because I need to add some JavaScript here using a template literal, the $ curly bracket thing. And in here, I'm going to create a Boolean that is going to represent if this particular menu item is selected. The way to do that is we can say, is the item's path name equal to the path name that is coming from the hook? In other words, are we on this page that corresponds to this menu item that we're currently iterating through? For each menu item, we're checking this condition. Okay, if this is the case, if this is true, we want to apply some Tailwind styling here. The Tailwind styling we're going to want to apply is we're going to say, okay, if this thing is selected, let's make the background of this like 700. There you go. So you can see that now that it's selected, which Shorts is because we're currently on the Shorts page, it has this background being applied. There's currently no way to switch pages though, so we need to add an onClick function that is going to update the URL route to be the one that we clicked on. So let's create a callback function called handle item click. This will take in our item that we click on. This will be of type menu item, if I can type. Inside of this function, we just want to basically take the path name from the item that was clicked on and add it to the URL, or push it to the URL is the proper term. The way we can get access to the router is through another Next.js hook called the use router. Now you're going to be asked for two options here. Choose the Next navigation folder, that is the newest one with Next 13. Inside of handle item click, we want to just say router.push and we want to push the item's path name to the router path. Then down here on this div, we can add an onClick function, onClick, and this onClick function is going to be a callback that calls our handle item click and passes in the item. So for every menu item, there's going to be an onClick created. When that particular item is clicked, it's going to pass that item to this function, and it's going to push that item's path name to the URL. So what does this look like in action? Now if I click on home, the index is pushed to the route or to the URL. So now the home is selected. If I click on shorts is pushed, and etc. So you can see the URL change. And this is how we can have this like kind of page routing between in our application. Cool. So one other thing I'm going to add is on YouTube. If one is currently selected and you hover it, it gets even like a bit lighter. You can see. To do that, we can just add another another utility class here. We can say if the item is selected, which is what this Boolean means, we want the background to not only be zinc, but we want it to, on hover, be even lighter. So we can say zinc like 500 or something, I don't know. And that's, maybe that's a bit too light, 600. Yeah, there we go. Beautiful. Cool. Okay, so now that's the hard part. We've finished the core logic of this menu here for both mobile. For both mobile and desktop. On YouTube, I think when on mobile, this menu or tablet, there's no background when you're on that current page. I don't really like that. I like when there's a background, so I'm just going to leave the background there if you're on that page. These borders make it look uglier than it actually is, so once we get rid of these borders, things will look a lot nicer. You know what, we can probably get rid of this border now. Let's do that. There we go, we're looking pretty good. And there's a slight, I don't know if you can see on the camera, there's like a 1 or 2 pixel border there, which for some reason, like, maybe it's being applied, we just can't see it because of that green border. Yeah. I'll make this 2 pixels for now. When I remove that green border, which we can probably do, honestly. We don't need the green border anymore. I could have probably gotten rid of that a while ago. Okay, there we go. Now I'm gonna go back to here and make this like 4 pixels or something. There we go, now we can see that tiny little space there on the left-hand side. Okay, this is actually pretty good. This is looking nice. We have it both available on desktop and mobile. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, let's expand this. Now what we can do is just, do the easy part and extend this menu items array to include all of the other items that we're missing on this this YouTube navigation here. Feel free to, skip ahead if you don't want to watch me do this. Again, the code's available in the repo. So if you just want to, copy and paste that stuff in, feel free. I will just quickly try to do it. And I'm just going to keep recording, because why not? All right, so for the subscription one, I don't think we're going to find one that looks like that. Book, I almost want to say. It's like a stack of books. Shelf. No, books. Maybe like library? No. Okay, you know what? We're just going to say play. This is the joy of React icons. You just kind of have to settle sometimes. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Wow. It actually like kind of exists. It's not exactly the same, but nice. Okay, so we can bring this in. So for our third menu item, we're going to add the icon that we just grabbed, which is this, which we need to import, which is, wow, it's finally auto-importing. Look at that. Okay, text is going to be subscriptions. The path name is going to be /subscriptions. I think that's the path name. Yes, or /feed/subscriptions. I'm just going to leave it as subscriptions. You know how to use the router now, so if you really want to make it /feed/subscriptions, all you would do is just make another folder called feed, and then inside that folder you'd make subscriptions. We don't have a subscriptions page though right now, so if I click this, we're gonna get a not found. You know what? I was just gonna create, I mean, I guess I have to create the page, so I might as well just make it the feed/subscription. So I guess I can show you how to do that. So inside of app, we're gonna create a folder called feed, I guess, and then inside of feed, we will create another folder called subscriptions. Then inside of here, we'll just create the page.tsx. So you can see how the client-side router works with the folder structure. Let's paste in our page from Shorts. This will be subscriptions, and this will be our subscriptions page. Okay, so let's close this. We have a valid page now. However, that means we need to change this. The path name we want to associate with subscriptions is going to be /feed/subscriptions. So now if I click subscriptions, we have the subscriptions page, and it's at the URL feed/subscriptions, which is just like YouTube. Cool. Okay, let's, you know what? I'm gonna make this like 28. It's a bit, yeah. Nice. I'm pretty pumped about this. This is looking nice. Okay, I'm gonna add just these two other ones here, originals and YouTube music, and that'll probably be enough for this tutorial. So let's do, again, this other one is pretty much just the YouTube logo, but like an outline. So say AI outline YouTube. This one will be our fourth. Icon will be that thing. The text will be originals, and the path name, we're just going to assume it's originals. This is not imported. Let's import this, which it's not going to auto import. Sigh, why not? AI outline YouTube, nice. All right, and last one, YouTube music. Let's search music. Okay, that's, oh, wow, there's actually a YouTube music icon, but it's dark. Wow. Do I use it? Yeah, why not? Let's see what it looks like. SI. Copy, paste this. Whoops. SI, YouTube, music, and we'll just make this music. Okay, that looks kind of weird. It's all white. Ugh. Why do I care? I feel like most people that are watching this just don't care that much about the details. I'm just gonna go get a regular play button though. Yeah, I'm gonna grab this one, BI. React BI. I'll clean up the imports. There we go, that looks much better. YouTube music. Cool. All right, and whoops, why is there two originals there? Okay, so there's currently no pages that exist for originals in YouTube music. I'm not gonna create those pages because it's the same exact thing as the other pages with the folders and stuff. So if you feel like doing that, feel free. I'm going to move on to the actual homepage content here. All right, let's do the most interesting part of this build, which is the actual video items, these things. So we're gonna do a little diagram drawing here again. So let's just inspect what's going on here. So if I shrink this down, again, we're talking mobile first. These are kind of, pretty much the same size. This is where we kind of have a resizable image. So we might see a little bit of that going on. But really the overall governing structure of the video item, and by video item I mean kind of like this thumbnail, this icon, this, and all this text in the image and whatever down here, that maintains the same with all the screen sizes. The container, the parent container, that is the container of all of the video items, the structure of that changes. You can see that they're here. They're aligned vertically one by one. There's only one per row. But then as we get bigger, it goes to 2, and then bigger and bigger. Okay, so let's go back to Excel Draw, and let's talk about this main content here. This is kind of how I would think. We don't have to spend too much time on this, but let's just create quickly one of these things. So this represents a video item, and like I said before, the video item is this thumbnail with all that text and stuff underneath. Okay, so again, I like to start with a diagram before I start building. So inside of here, we have this image, which is the thumbnail. Okay. Then down here, we have this container that kind of contains all this bottom stuff, right? So there's only like 2 major boxes. This is the outer container, the thumbnail, and then all this stuff down here. Okay, well, let's zoom in a bit more. Let's take this stuff down here, because there's some, several things in there. Here it's just the image, so whatever, we're already pretty much, that's as far as we need to go there. But down here, let's zoom in. So in here, we have, essentially this div on the left that contains the image at the top, like this. And then we have this over here. Okay, and this contains all the text. So then we're going to have this container is going to have another container that contains like the title of the video. Then down here, we're going to have another container. These diagrams are really helpful in figuring out like just the flexbox styling. You can see which containers need which flex properties and things like that. So this container is the container of all of this text. And so let's break this down even further. Break this down and say, okay, well, this thing has, again, we're just talking flex stuff down here. There's this container that has the views and the created at date, and then there is this this one that has the channel name and like the verified or not verified icon. Cool. So now you can see what I mean. This idea of like breaking each box down into its smaller pieces, and like visuals like this really help you understand, like I said, what flex properties need to apply. You can worry about the font size and blah 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 and all that stuff and padding later. These diagrams really help you solve the most challenging parts of building out UIs, which is like the layout. In my opinion, that's the toughest part. Okay, well, it's pretty easy to see like what divs we need when we create diagrams like this. And just to make this more clear, this is a video item, and this is the thumbnail, and this is the text plus, or I guess image plus text. We'll go from left to right. I don't know why there's an 8 there. Thumbnail, image, text, and yeah, the rest is kind of self-explanatory. Cool. Now that we have these diagrams, let's go build this thing out. So we're getting to the home stretch here of this build. Okay, so let's close the directory. Now we're going to be mostly in our home page. So we'll go to our root page file. To make things just a bit more clear for the time being, let's add our famous border, border 2, border red 500. Okay, so we can, again, this border has pointed out that this thing is clearly not the correct width. So we want to say maybe flex 1. Okay, cool. So now it's flex 1. It's taking up the remaining space available, which is just the rest of this, of the screen, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so if we go look at the homepage of YouTube, there, at the very top, there's this like menu. We're not going to build this. This is kind of, beyond the scope of the tutorial. Let's focus on these things here. Okay, well, all we want to do is iterate through all of our video items data, which I'm going to be pasting in a second here. Actually, let's just do that now. So like I said, I have some fake data that I created. So inside of app, I'm going to create just a folder called util, and inside of here, I'll create a file called data.ts. Now, this is dummy data that I created for the purpose of this tutorial. There's an interface that represents like a feed video, and then I just have an array of these fake feed videos. These are actually real videos that exist. Like the thumbnail URL is similar to what we did with the Twitter thing. These are real YouTube thumbnail links. So for example, this is a MKBHD video. If I click on this, it will take us to this thumbnail that's hosted on one of YouTube's storage buckets. So we're going to need to add this to our remote patterns thing again in our next config. So let's just do that now while we're here looking at it. We'll add the protocol, inside of remote patterns, we're going to add a item with protocol HTTPS, the hostname i.youtube. I don't know, this is short for like YouTube. You can see that. It's similar to the Twitter one. And then the path name, which I learned you need 2 stars now. Okay, and then we can just recompile the app to make those changes go into effect. Okay. Close this. So we have our fake data in here. Again, go to the repo down below to grab this and just paste it into this util data file if you desire. I just have like the basic properties of a feed video that are all displayed here. So we have like the created at date, the views, the channel name, and then the title of the video, as well as the thumbnail to the image. And if you actually go on YouTube, you can get the URL to any thumbnail, right? It's a publicly hosted image similar to Twitter. So for example, if I go to this one, I can right click on it and go to copy image address and paste that in the browser here, and it'll take me to this publicly hosted image. That's exactly what YouTube does with all of these images. So we're doing this pretty much the same thing. Now, obviously in a real application, this data would be fetched from a database, from a backend, and then brought to the front end, blah, blah, blah. But we are trying to practice our UI building skills. So let's just focus on that. We'll use some fake data here. Okay, so I'm going to close this. We're not going to need it. Inside of the home file, though, I'm going to import the data. So we'll go into util/data, and we'll import our feed videos. Okay, inside of this here, let's iterate through those feed videos. So we'll say feed videos.map. We'll take each video, and for each one, we're going to create some piece of HTML. Again, we're referencing our diagram here. For each video item, we are creating one of these containers, and then we're going to dummy down and get smaller and smaller until this thing is its full form. Okay, so let's add some borders here. Blue 500. Okay. Let's render the thumbnail. We're going to need to use an image tag. So image from next image. We'll make the source equal to video dot thumbnail URL. Whoops. Video thumbnail URL. We'll make the height equal to, I'm just totally going to guess and say 200, and the width is going to be equal to 400, which might look distorted and weird, but that's okay. We'll fix it after. Just need some starting point. The alt will just be thumbnail. Whoops, thumbnail. Thumbnail. All right, this is not rendering. Why not? Okay, there we go. Just had to refresh. Okay, so we have these images appearing here, which is pretty cool. We can see there's some roundedness going on. What I'm going to do here is actually wrap this image in a div like this. Okay, Now remember, each one of these blue things represents a video item. So we're trying to get the blue thing to look like this thing here. This is our blue thing. Okay. We'll worry about the wrapper container, like this stuff up here, in a bit. Let's just worry about the structure of this first, and then we'll talk about, like the grid and the flexbox positioning of all these things later, once that's done. Okay. I hate to flip back and forth so much. I wish I had like a side view. That's okay. I think I can kind of, memorize what it looks like. I've been on YouTube so much. I should know by now. Okay, so we have this div. This is going to be our image wrapper here. So this is where it gets kind of tricky with images. I don't fully know what to do. I wonder do we even need this thing? Let's see if we, I always want to see if we can get away with not using it. I'm going to leave it there, and if we don't need it, we'll delete it later. This thing with the border blue, we're going to add flex property to it, and it's going to be flex column. Okay, because this is this container, and we have two children that are arranged in a column-like fashion. Those two children are going to be our thumbnail, as well as this like bottom text container stuff. Why does it not give me the closing tag by default? That's really annoying. Okay, so the one here is going to be our image and text container. So we'll add a border 2, border orange 500. Okay, there's nothing in it right now. Inside of here, based on our diagram, we have two more children, right? We have this this image container as well as the video details container. So let's create those children. Div, here's one child, and here's the other child. Inside of here, we're going to have an image. Oh, I actually totally forgot to include the channel URL in the dummy data, which I'm not going to go find all those. It's not really that important. What I'm going to do is I'll grab this guy because he has a nice profile image, copy image address. And what I'll do is I'll go to the dummy data feed videos, and on this interface I'm going to add, in addition to the thumbnail URL, I'm going to add a channel image URL, which will be of type string. And for all of these, I'm going to give it the exact same one. Obviously that's not accurate, but I'm sure you get the point. If you really want to, feel free to go search for all these videos or use your own videos that you find, and then you can put the correct ones. Okay, we just need a comma there. Okay, there we go. Okay, so again, if you don't want to do all that annoying, tedious stuff I just did, just grab this state of the feed or videos from the repo. Okay. So for this image, we're going to say the source is going to be video.channel_image URL, and we're going to make the height and width pretty much the same as the one we used up here. What did we use for that one? We said top navigation. We had this. I'm just going to copy this and put it here, but I'm going to change this source to be, actually, you know what? Oh, wow, why didn't I just do that? I'm going to leave it as this Elon Musk one. I just liked it a bit better. So I'm going to go and into our data again and just basically undo everything I just did. Whoops. Okay, there we go. Okay, so again, if you want to add the real channel image URL to the thing, to the video items, feel free to add that in the video, in the feed video interface. Okay, we have our div with the image, which is this thing, and we have our div with the text. Our div with the text, which is this, has again two more child components. It has the title container as well as the the other component, this grayed out text here. So we're going to have those two children in here. Whoops. So 1 and 2. Okay, so inside of this first one, we're going to have the video.title. Let's save this. Okay, then down here, we said, well, we actually have 2 more containers. So this is why these diagrams are so helpful. At least this is kind of how my brain works. So we have these 2 more divs. In the first one, we are going to have the channel name. So we'll say video.channel name. In the second one, we actually might need to zoom in a bit more because we have the views. Whoops. We have the views as well as the created at date in there. So this bottom one here can be even zoomed in on even further. We have the views. We have the dot, actually, that little dot there that you can see. And then we have the created at text, which is pretty cool. Hang on a sec. Do we need video.channel name? This doesn't really need to be in a div. This can just be the video channel name can just be a span tag. We don't really need that div. Whoops, video.channel name. This one though, however, needs to be, oh, this actually turned out blue. Let's make this white. This one will need to be a div. Inside of here, we will have the span tag that is the views. So we'll say video.view count. We're going to have the dot, which I'll make a real icon in a sec, but I'm just going to say dot for a second here. Then we'll have the created at date. Now we're going to need to video.created at. This is a date, so we might have to say like new date. How do we do this? Another thing that I always get tripped up on is working with dates in JavaScript. Let's just say video.created at dot to date string, whatever. We'll start with that and see how that looks. Okay, we'll fix that. Okay, so now we have stuff showing up on the UI. However, it looks kind of weird. So this div, where's the image? We have this orange one, which wraps our image and then the text. So that's the image and the text. We want to put flex here so that it's horizontally aligned. And then there's a bit of a gap there you can see between this image and this other container here. So we can say gap 2, whoops, maybe even 3. Yeah, that looks good. Then we have this div here, which is the text wrapper. Again, I'm going to give this a class of flex and a gap of, or a flex direction of column, and we'll say that the gap is 3 as well. Whoops. That's going to put some spacing between the title and the other text, which is, what's happening on YouTube there. Whoa, what just happened? Maybe this is like 2. Yeah. Okay. The video title. Again, I don't even know if we need this div here. We can just change this to a span. The span is in itself like a box, so the same thing. And we'll say a class name, we'll say font semi-bold. Yeah, semi-bold. Now all the text in this bottom container here, we want to be a bit smaller and a bit darker. So we'll say text SM, I guess. This is zoomed in, so let's go back to 100%. This is 100%, yeah. text SM, and we'll say text a little bit darker. We'll say zinc. I don't know, 400. That might be too dark. Let's try 300. That's not quite what I want. Maybe 400. Yeah, 400 is fine. Cool. And I actually might make this text white. Video.title, we'll say text white to make it a bit brighter. Yeah, there we go. Okay, amazing. We are seeing an issue though. The widths are not quite lining up. So how are we going to fix the width here? This flex 1. So this represents the video item, and it's currently being, stretched to a width of 100%. Now, how should we do the widths here? I gotta think about this a bit, because I want this text to wrap kind of like at the image height. I think, okay, let's try this. Let's try making the width of this, I don't know, 300 pixels. Okay, that's a bit better. It seems about right. Let's maybe try like 320 or 360. Nice, okay. That's better. So again, we're going, wait, there's a bit of space between the thumbnail and the bottom stuff. So let's add a gap here. We'll say gap 3. There we go. Okay, we can probably remove this orange border. We'll keep the blue one. Now we're gonna start to talk about what even happens. This is what I don't really understand. The next image. How does this work? 400. How does this width correspond to like that width? I think we want the same width there. I think. I don't know, this is weird. Yeah, because if this was like smaller, I think we want them to be the same. I'm not sure. Okay, so on mobile, we have it, the arrangement, we're going to start talking about the red container now. On mobile, the arrangement is there's only like one in each row. So what we want to do, I think, is, I haven't done styling like this for a while, so I think what I'm going to do is say flex column, I'm going to say gap like 6, maybe even more, maybe 10. Okay, that spaces them out. However, I'm wondering if we can use like a grid here. How would grid work? Yeah, I kind of want to get this like accurate because they're different. Like this is, the images are different on each one, or on each screen size. So on mobile they're pretty big, then they get smaller. So there's always only 2. Okay, I'm just thinking. This is kind of tough. I'm not great with grids because I don't use them that often, so I always have to think extra about them. Like I know what I could do is like, say at medium, I could say flex row, and then like flex wrap or something is like an option, which will kind of like do what we want maybe, but yeah, that kind of works. Maybe. It works, I guess. Yeah, I guess as the bigger we go, Maybe, but then on YouTube, like they're smaller. Like if I go to the maximum screen size, yeah, I guess that kind of works. The width is perhaps smaller, so I'm trying to look at these here side by side. Let's make this div. Let's add some classes here. I'm gonna say, this is tricky. Class name, rounded, large. Okay, that rounds our image. Okay, we can probably get rid of this blue border now. It's kind of ugly. Okay, and let's try making the width. The images are a bit smaller and shorter, so I'm gonna say the height is gonna be like 180. That didn't do anything. Width 300. Okay, that makes that smaller. Let's try 340. Okay, and let's do the width of this to be 340. We want it to match. Okay, there we go. There's way too much gap between rows here. So because on mobile we had that gap, which also works on tablet, but when we get to 4, let's say like large screen size, let's do gap of like 4 or something. I think that looks fine. Why is there such a large gap here though? The height, width 34. What is this height coming from? Why is there such a gap here between, I mean, it looks like fine to me, but like not at the same time. Okay, another thing though, let's add some padding. Let's do P8. There we go, that looks much better. Let's get rid of this ugly red border. Okay, this is looking pretty good. Maybe we only want P8 in the X direction though, so that it lines up with the top. Let's do PY like 4. Yeah, that looks fine, I think. This actually looks pretty good. I'm actually pretty pumped about this. I think it wraps actually pretty nicely. I think I might leave it like this. Like, yeah, you can expand this. Hang on, I want to try something. Why is it that when it goes to 4, it creates this like massive spacing between each one? I'm wondering if grid is actually like a better way to do this. I'm not great at grid though, so I think I might roll with the flex wrap. I think flex wrap and grid are like kind of similar things. I think this works. So this actually looks pretty good on YouTube. Oh, I forgot also that there's this. Ooh, I totally missed this. This little dot thing here. But wait, why is it only? Oh, it's only there if you hover. Interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna put this little menu thing, this icon. Whoops. I'm gonna put this little menu thing here, which I forgot to add to our little Excel draw diagram, but that's okay. All we need to do is inside of the title thing, we are going to need a container here because we're going to have another item inside of it. Div, take this and put this span inside. Inside of here, we're going to put this menu thingy, those 3 dots. So let's go to React Icons and let's say menu. And we want these 3 dots. Oh, we're going to need the dots as well, like that little dot there. Okay, let's grab these 3 dots, BS 3 dots vertical. Okay. Let's see if we can get the auto import to work. Span, and we want the BS 3 dots vertical. Oh, it worked. Wow, look at that. Okay, we're going to need to make the flex direction of this, or we're going to need to add the flex property. And we're going to need to say justify between. This is being weird. When the title wraps, it makes the thing smaller. I think what we need to do is on our text, I'm going to say max width. I'm going to give this a max width of like 80% or something. Yeah. So it's going to wrap and it's not going to conflict with the little dots. You can expand little dots if you want, to add them, to make them a bit better. Okay, and also let's add this like dot thing. I currently just have the text dot. So let's do dot. BS dot, look at that. Right here, BS dot. BS. Okay, now this is where we're going to need to do our class name flex. Save it like this. And we'll do a item center so that they're vertically aligned. And yeah, they already kind of have the correct spacing, which is great out of the box. Cool. Okay, so that's like pretty much it. We just kind of built the YouTube UI. There's obviously improvements that can be made, but this is like a really good, I think, kind of, if you're new to Tailwind, a good intro to Tailwind. Obviously, we haven't built the shorts page or anything, but on the home page, we have built kind of this core functionality here. We saw a lot of how to do responsive design with Tailwind. We built like a multi-select menu, which is really cool. We built the search bar. I think this looks really good. I'm pretty pumped about this, honestly. It looks like the real thing, minus a few small details. So I'm gonna wrap this up here. This was a lot longer than I anticipated, but we covered a lot. We built like a multi-select menu. We got like responsive design. We saw a lot of Tailwind in this video, and we also saw a little bit of TypeScript. Learn the fundamentals of Next.js 13, and we built something pretty cool. And I'm not sure how long this video is because I haven't edited it yet. I'm gonna guess around 1 to 2 hours. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below if you like this type of video where I just sort of jump into a problem that I haven't really solved before and kind of just walk through it raw and figure it out as we go. Also, let me know what you think of these like diagrams. I love this Excel draw tool. So let me know if you think that that's useful. If so, I'll definitely create more videos like this in the future. They're super fun. And it's kind of fun for me to just jump into these little challenges and see if I can build them. So yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, drop a like, and like I said, please let me know what you think of this video in the comments below. Really appreciate the feedback. Thank you guys so much. Take care. I will see you in the next one.